Don't hang up that phone. We've found what you're looking for. Welcome to the Let's Talk Cabling Podcast with Chuck Bowser, RCDD. Well, seeing how we're pulling Category 6A, the most powerful twisted pair in the world, you gotta ask yourself this one question. Did I pull 295 or 300 feet? Well, do you feel lucky? Do you, punk? What exactly does RCDD stand for? Registered Communications Distribution Designer. Just the expert you need to ensure your cable plant performs exactly as designed. The elite professional, knowledgeable, and experienced in leading-edge ICT design principles. Now, send the new guy to the truck for a bucket of dial tone and the cable stretchers, while you listen to an informative program on telecommunications.
Salutations, everybody. Welcome to the Thursday night after hours live with Chuck Bowser, RCDD, where we answer your cabling questions. So I'm expecting a guest today, and hopefully he'll be coming in here shortly. So I might have to actually answer some other questions before his. I was going to let him go first, but I guess maybe not. So you know how we always start every show on Thursday nights, right? Right? How do we start every show? George knows because he already put it in the TikTok comment. You see me look up here. I'm looking at TikTok because this is broadcast on TikTok as well. So every Thursday night after hours, we always do a "What Are You Drinking" segment. What are you drinking? Now, for my new people, you might be thinking Chuck's drinking water. Chuck's not drinking water. Chuck is drinking Zevia. This is ginger flavored Zevia. Shotzi is in the house. Hello, Shotzi. And of course, Shotzi is drinking Dr. Pepper. Shotzi and I go back a ways. He was actually one of my students. Shotzi, we're doing a TDMM study group. It's going to start in about 2 or 3 weeks, so make sure you watch out for that. Okay, I didn't announce that on TikTok yet. I'm doing a TDMM study group. So if you want to learn more about telecommunications or you're studying for your RCDD, I'm doing a study group. Okay, so there we go. So let me see what does some other people drinking in here today. Michael is drinking water peach flavored. Very good. We actually grow lemongrass plants, and we do lemongrass tea. No sugar in it. We do that as well too. And Lisa's back. Hello, Lisa. How you doing? Glad to have you back. Just a big old glass of water. Water's good. Water is good. Water's good for you. Well, you know, after I do the drink segment, what's the very next thing that I always do? Let me see. That would be the acronym challenge, right? Right? Acronym challenge. So for my people on TikTok who cannot see the acronym screen, the acronym I'm trying to have everybody guess today is NRTL. NRTL. If you think you know what that means, put it in the chat box. Put it in the chat box. What does NRTL stand for? Now, of course, I can't do the acronym challenge without doing my acronym statement, right? Please spay or neuter your acronyms. Help control the acronym population. We have enough acronyms. We don't need more. Okay? We don't need more. NRTL. Anybody want to take a guess what that stands for? It has something to do with fire stopping, which is hopefully our guest who comes on. I just shot him a text to see, where are you? Mike, where are you? It stands for Nationally Recognized Testing Laboratory. Nationally Recognized Testing Laboratory. We talked about UL just a few minutes ago, or we were in the TikTok channel. Not everybody is watching in TikTok. So we're talking about fire stopping and the word listed. The word listed means a product or service that has been tested by a NRTL and has been proven to meet flame and smoke standards by the NFPA and are put on a list, and the authority having jurisdiction accepts it so you can install it in their building. That's what NRTL means. And UL, Underwriters Laboratories, is an example of an NRTL. So the first question I'm going to answer, and I'm going to give some love to my TikTok group. And this one comes from, oh, hold on. That print is so small. I'm going to put on my safety glasses So the words don't jump off the screen and injure my eyes. PPE, always, folks. ISP or OSP copper run in a metallic conduit under a slab inside of a building. God, that's a good one. That's a good one. Now, I'm not sure what you're asking there, so I'm just going to give you a general statement for that, right? What you just described is called a wet location per the code book. Wet location. Wet location means slab on grade construction. Okay, that means that the concrete was poured directly on the earth and allowed to cure, and then they built the building up from that concrete slab. Okay, now wet locations drive low voltage installers crazy. And why do they do that? Because number one, most low voltage installers. Now, my electrician's in the room, like Dose in the room. He probably knows what a wet location is, but most low voltage technicians or installers don't. Okay, so when you pour that concrete on the ground and you let it cure, then you build the building up from it. If you have conduit underneath of the concrete, when it rains, some water, the ground absorbs the water. Okay, well, the concrete absorbs moisture from the earth, right? And then moisture can get into your conduit. Now, if your cable's in the conduit underneath the dirt, in the dirt underneath the concrete slab, your cable's now going to get wet. Okay. Afternoon, Mr. Alarm 6614, I think it says. Now, the reason that's bad is because your cable gets wet. And when cable gets wet, as the electron is going down the cable, it's going against resistance. So the electron is looking for the path of least resistance. So when a cable gets wet, the electron gives the electron the water gives the electron another path to go that's less resistant than going down the copper conductor. So you can have some attenuation with that. Now, here's what makes it controversial. When it comes to the code book and wet locations, they exempt us from that. When I say us, I mean low voltage. They exempt us from that. As a responsible installer, responsible designer, I'm going to tell you right now, in that scenario, you better be running flooded cable inside that conduit because that's going to help it from getting wet. Now, flooded cable is not a listed cable. So when a cable comes out of that conduit, then it's got to change over to a plenum or a riser rated cable. So he gave us some additional information. Let's see, put on my glasses so I can read it. A 4-inch metallic conduit run from an offset basement under the slab at a grade 15 feet up to the TR. So what you're asking me if you should put inside plant or outside plant cable inside of that? Is that what you're asking me, big rig? If that's what you're asking me, then it should be outside plant cabling. Now, outside plant cabling, you can buy it a couple different ways, right? You can buy just the conductors with the gel fill, or you can buy the conductors with the gel fill and the armor wrap. Don't get the armor wrap. Just get the outside plant with just the gel fill. And then when that cable comes up into the TR, remember you got that 50-foot rule. Within 50 feet, you got to change it over to a plenum or riser ready cable. Now, since it's going into a TR, you're probably not going to have an excess of 50 feet. Confirm if I'm making that assumption right, big rig. So yeah, now you only have to do that on the conduit that's in the dirt underneath that first slab of concrete. The second floor, that conduit's not in the earth, so it's not a wet location. It's only that one on the bottom. So use outside plant cable, but you don't have to use armored outside plant. Just use a flood. That's why I said flooded cable. Flooded cable, right? Okay, so I'm still waiting for my guest to come on, and still haven't heard anything. We'll give another couple minutes. So let's go ahead and move on to question number 2 for tonight. Question number 2. And this question is from a longtime fan favorite, George. George is watching tonight on TikTok. He's trying something new. Now, I abbreviated his question a little bit. His question basically says, will a cable run from a switch to a drop under the carpet affect its performance? The answer is yes, it will. In that scenario, what you're not really supposed to use cable underneath the carpet, period. If you can find another way to get the cable there, that should be the way that you want to get it there, okay? You really don't want to be doing under carpet cabling. Now, if you have to use under carpet cabling, there are some things you do have to consider, right? Number one, you really should be using flat cable, flat undercarpet cable. Okay, that helps reduce this thing called witness lines. When you have a cable underneath the carpet, and when people just come walking across all the time, what will happen is you'll see where that cable is because it'll be a light. It'll be lighter there because it wears down faster there. That's called a witness line. That also damages the cable. You should also keep that flat cable to less than 30 feet. Now, flat cable, you cannot run it all the way back to the telecom room. So what does that mean? That means you got to put in what's called a transition point. A transition point. This is also known as zone cabling. This is a version of zone cabling. So generally what you're going to do is you're going to run that undercarpet cable to a little box mounted real low near the mopboard on the wall. It'll have a connector field inside of it. You'll terminate your flat cable on that. And then you're going to run a regular round cable from that transition point back to the telecom room. So now you've got a splice. You got a splice. Splices aren't good when it comes to cabling because you have signal loss. You have signal loss, right? Now, some other things you need to watch out for. That transition point, it's got to be mounted on permanent building structure. Permanent building structure. That means a column, a wall, all right? Also put it somewhere where they're not going to be obstructed, like behind a file cabinet. And definitely don't have somebody put a file cabinet or modular furniture on top of the actual cable run. That's going to cause you problems as well. Now, another reason why you want to avoid staying away from undercarpet cabling is because it makes moves, adds, and changes a nightmare. A nightmare. Now, let me back this up a step. There is a couple manufacturers that still make undercarpet cabling, and you actually glue the cable to the ground, and then you glue a metal pan over top of that, so that way, if someone steps on it, it kind of spreads out the force on the cable, so that way you're not really stepping on just one cable. So there is some undercarpet cable specifically designed for that purpose, but you still got to transition it. And now you got this cable glued to the ground underneath the carpet, and then when you get to your drop, you got to put what's called a doghouse. Okay, there's another name for it. Maybe my electricians can tell me what the name is. I've always called them dog houses. I can't remember the technical name from off the top of my head. So you got to mount that to the concrete floor, and then you run the cable up inside of that and terminate. Now, if that cable ever goes bad, or a pair gets damaged, or you got to move it, it's not going to move very well because number one, it's glued to the ground, and there's not a whole bunch of slack inside of it. There's not a whole bunch of slack inside of it. So undercarpet cabling is just a bad thing to do and just kind of stay away from it, period. Only do it if you absolutely have to. And if you have to do it, the flat cable or the undercarpet cable should be less than 33 feet. Less than 33 feet to the transition point. Okay, so let's my gentleman from Korea, let me ask for the wet location. What about floor box on the first floor? Is it all for a wet location? So if there's no basement, if the concrete's sitting right on the earth, that's considered a wet location. That's what the question was asking across TikTok. That's what somebody was asking me. So good question. And somebody, a unidentified user, says most gas stations are like that. Yeah, oh yes. And gas stations have a lot of additional requirements on them because gasoline, flammable, explosive. Did you know flour is almost as explosive as gasoline? Yeah, and when you disperse it into the air, it's very flammable. Oh, look who's in the house. Mr. Todd's in the house. Welcome. If you're not familiar with Todd, he works for Brother Solutions. He's got a bi-weekly show. I was watching it today. You need to check him out. He's got some good content. And he will be at Bixie. I'm going to be riding my bike over to Bixie this week. So there you go. Oh, I didn't know that about sugar dust. I did not know that. I knew flour was, but I did not know that sugar was like that. So very cool. See, look, this is the show where you learn useless information. And so is grain. I've heard pepper is that way too. My uncle used to work at what's that spice company that makes salt and pepper, the big famous one. They have a plant in downtown Baltimore. And he told me one time that pepper is actually it can, the way they process it, it can cause a spark. So okay, so the next question is, and this question is let me check to see if my guest has come on. He's not even responded. So I don't know what's going on there. He said, so this guest question came from TikTok, right? And this question is, should I run Cat5 cable to my TV locations in my house? Now, there's a little bit more to that question. I kind of truncated it because I only have a certain amount of characters that I can put on my screen there. So this person was building a new house, and they're running some cable to cable to their TV locations, and they posted on there, should I run Cat5 cabling? And so let me first start off. Cat5 is a legacy cable. Cat5 is a legacy cable. Legacy in the low voltage industry means, oh, you're not supposed to be using it anymore. Can you still buy it? Yes, you can. But why would you? Why would you? You know, in manufacturing, there's this economic law where when everybody's buying a whole bunch of something, the price goes down because you have efficiency of production. When project gets towards its end of life cycle and not everybody's buying, is becoming less sought after, the price to manufacture actually goes up, right? So Cat 3 and Cat 5e are now as expensive, if not more expensive, than Cat 5e. Cat 5e is a better cable. Why would you spend more money on a cable with less performance than Cat 5e? So that's the first thing I want to point out there. And the second thing is, a lot of people in our industry, and even the people outside of industry, always refer to Cat 5e as Cat 5. No, it's Cat 5e. Call it what it is. Okay. You are confusing people. Now, when you get outside of the US, there are some countries that refer to Cat 5e as Cat 5. I learned that lesson on a TikTok video about 2 months ago. So I just didn't know that. So Mr. Todd is saying hi. Now, some other things you need to pay attention to when it comes to doing residential cabling. When you talk about residential cabling, there's two grades that you're supposed to consider. If you're looking for minimum performance, then you should run at least one 4-pair category rated cable, and that cable's got to be, and this is all per the Bixby Telecom Distributions and Methods Manual. That first cable's got to be Cat 5e. That second cable should be a 75 ohm Series 6, or for old people like me and Todd, RG6 cabling. But they don't call it RG6 anymore. It's called a Series 6 now. So one 4-pair cable, one Series 6 cable. And it should be Cat 5e minimum. But they do recommend in the TDMM that can be a Cat 6 cable. Now, I get asked, you wonder why our industry has so many arguments? If you go to the ANSI 570 standard, it tells us that cable has to be Cat 6A. Yeah, that's why we have so many arguments in our industry. So that's the first grade for if you're looking for minimum compliance, right? All you guys just a regular drop over there. Now, let's say, for example, on Monday's show, I have a guy coming on as a guest on my podcast. He's very, very knowledgeable in AV. Very knowledgeable in AV. He has forgotten more about AV than I know about AV. So he agreed to come on the thing. We're going to talk to AV about him. And I guarantee you, his house, he has the best of everything, right? He's got a smart home, and he's got probably the best multimedia system that you can buy because he's like that. He's like that, right? So if you got one of those kinds, then you have to put in two 4-pair category rated cables, minimum of Cat 5e, right? And two 75 ohm Series 6 cables. So that's 4 cables. Now, they don't all have to come out in the same spot because I get always asked the question, Chuck, what about a wall phone? You can separate them. So if you have if you got a wall phone, just have the voice coming out there and then run the data down and the coax going down to below it. They can come out as separate drops, but they got to be kind of like a wall phone application. So those drops are right next to each other, right? Now, when you start talking about topologies, right? The recommended topology for the category rated cable for residential wiring is a star topology. I mean, all the cables come back to one location, right? They all come back to one location. A lot of your older houses were not wired that way. They were wired in a daisy chain. What they would do is, especially like apartment buildings, they would run the main feed into the drop in the kitchen, and then that drop would feed all the bedrooms and all the other drops inside the apartment building, okay? with the category rated cabling, you want in star topology. Now, when it comes to the coax, you can do a star topology, you can do a bus topology, or a star and bus topology for the coax cable, right? So, somebody said on TikTok, he probably has PoE running lights. We'll have to ask him that when I get him on the show. I'm actually interviewing him right after I finish this, but it won't air until Monday. So the ANSI 570 standard, like I said, does require Category 6 cable. I did get another comment on TikTok that I wanted to address. So somebody said, when I put out that, Cat 5 is not supposed to be there anymore, it's supposed to be Cat 5e, Cat 6, and stuff like that. Somebody said, and I went through, Cat 5e is 100 megahertz, Cat 6 is 250, Cat 6a is 500, Cat 7 is, doing these from memory, 600 megahertz, Cat 7a is 1000 megahertz, and Cat 8 is 2000 megahertz, right? So when I posted that video, that person said megahertz or megabits? Megahertz or megabits? That's easy. It's megahertz. And they responded back, megahertz? You're wrong. No, I'm not. It's megahertz. Cables are rated in megahertz, not megabits, right? Cables are rated by their bandwidth, and that's what that megahertz is telling you. Think of them as this way. Think of them as a highway, right? That Cat 5e has a 100-lane highway. That 100-lane highway through my small little town in the country, plenty big enough. The 100-lane highway going through downtown Atlanta ain't big enough, okay? So you need a bigger highway. So let's say they decide to go with a Cat 6A. That's a 500-lane highway. So it's the number of lanes on that highway. The more lanes, the more megabits, gigabits you can put across that cable, right? So it is megahertz. It's rated in megahertz, not megabits. So I just, this kind of, I don't know why the person said that. Just kind of, I must be getting internet famous because I'm starting to get trolls, right? I'm starting to get trolls. Let me know if you have an internet troll on your platform, right? Let me see some other questions here. What did Todd for say? Let me ask for the wet location. What about the floor blocks on the first floor? Is that all for a wet location? Only if that first floor touches the earth, right? The second floor, the concrete slab doesn't touch the earth, so that's not considered a wet location. So you can actually use that, right? So, so somebody says on TikTok, you still have my book under the networking section. Yes, absolutely, I do have your book. I need to get it back to you. So that was the only question I had because my fire stopping guy. You know what? I'll answer that fire stopping question without him because I wanted him to answer the question because he's a really cool guy and I've known him for a while. But I'll go ahead and answer the question. So the fire stopping question that came across. Let me put it up on the screen so you can see it. There it is. So when installing a standard, what is the standard when installing a sleeve, a fire stop sleeve, through a concrete wall to an exterior or interior for one cable? So let me address each of those separately, okay? First, let's talk about an interior wall. So for an interior wall, you need to know what is the fire rating of the wall, right? Is it a 1-hour wall? Is it a 2-hour wall? Is it a 3-hour wall? And then you got to take that information and the number of cables, and then you're going to look it up in the catalogs in the back because they got these pages in the back with all the UL drawings. And then you might find in that particular scenario for an interior, you might be able to just go ahead and get by with this just a regular fire stop sleeve like this. Okay. Right. So I love the kits from Unique Fire Stop Systems because they come with everything. They come with the putty, they come with the stickers, and then you take this smooth bore penetration, and I'll put them in so everybody can see. See, it says UL rated, right? So you drill your hole through the wall. You take your screwdriver, unloose these set screws, pull this out, slide that through your hole, put these two pieces up against the wall, tighten them down, put your bushings on. There you go, Mr. Electricians. Put your bushings on, right? And then run your cable through and then fill it up at the stop. Exterior wall gets a little different. The exterior wall is a little bit different. So with an exterior wall, Unique Fire Stop Systems came out with a really cool exterior system. Let me put it up on the screen for you. And it's so small I can't tell. Well, let me turn off that caption first so it's not messing up everybody. Is it this one? Yes. There it is. It's called a point of entry fire stop system. And this is perfect for outside coming in for an exterior wall coming into the building, because you can make the hole just big enough for your one cable, and there's enough intumescent material to stop it, so that way it doesn't continue on. Because when it comes to fire stopping, you want to stop the fire and you want to stop the smoke as well. So they also have another new product. I want to point this out too, because they got these. How many times have you actually had to? Why did I put that on there for? How many times have you had a sleeve going through the wall with no cables in it, right? And then you had to pack it with putty, and then the putty or the caulk just doesn't stay in there right. So Unique Fire Stop System has these little plugs, right? So you just slide the plug into the conduit, and it even has a little thing on it. Look, stop! Don't use this. If you come out, you're gonna have to make some retrofits to this and make sure that you do it correctly, right? So there are some ways. So the first step is understand what is the fire rating of the wall, and then make that adjustment. I figure that what the rating is, look it up in the book for that system, and then select the right system and install it exactly as the UL drawing says to install it. Because if you don't install it the way the UL drawing says to do it, what you have is a code violation. A code violation. So let's see. Michael has a question here. If a cable can snugly fit, you can install it directly into, can't you, by drilling a hole that just fits, at least according to our building codes here in Ontario, for one cable. I'm even though I'm very knowledgeable in the US electrical code, I'm not quite so knowledgeable in the Canadian electrical code, the CEC. If your inspector allows you to do that, get it in writing. Have them send you an email. Okay? Inspectors have been known to be wrong. And if the inspector's wrong and he's interpreting it wrong, and the building catches on fire, and because a lot of people don't know this, when cable burns, when you have cable in a system, when it burns, it burns 6 feet a minute until it gets to the other side of that cable. So if you just got one cable going through the wall, it could act as a fuse. It could burn through the wall till it gets to the other side, and there might be something more flammable on the other side. So if the inspector is saying that is okay, get it in writing. Get it in writing. The three most important things in our industry are documentation, documentation, and documentation. When in doubt, document it some more, right? Because if something, it probably gets damaged or people get hurt, the fire inspectors are going to inspect it and find out why it caught on fire and why did it spread the way that it spread, and they could hold you responsible. Who wants to go to prison because they didn't put enough fire stop putty in a hole? I know I don't. So there you go. Any other questions? We are getting down to the last 2 minutes of the show. Let me know if you have any other questions about communications. I do career path. I also do talk about certifications. If you're looking to get into AV, I'm going to be talking to my guest about how to do that certification through AV. Last couple minutes here. Still waiting for people to type in the question. Hey, are you going to Bixie? I know Lisa is going to go to Bixie. Todd's going to Bixie. I'm going to Bixie. It's going to be, hang on. I should do a TikTok video with Todd and Lisa. Yeah, that's what I should do. So if you guys are going, let me know. Send me an email, shoot me a message, and we'll hang out. I'll be there Tuesday through Thursday. Tuesday through Thursday. Oh, did you hear? Bixie just came out with the new 8th edition ITSA manual. Now, there's a lot of manuals that Bixie produces, right? Everybody knows the TDMM, the Telecom Distributions Methods Manual, right? That's the book that people like me use to design cable plants. It doesn't tell you how to actually install it, okay? How to actually install it. That's where the ITSA manual comes to play. The ITSA manual, and it stands for Information Technology Installation Methods Manual, or is it Information Transport Systems Installation Method Manual? I can't remember off the top of my head. It tells the installers how to actually do it, right? So, hey, so go visit Brothers Solutions at booth 532. Lisa, what booth are you guys at? I think you're at 805, if I remember right? Let me know if which booth you guys are in, because I'm going to be visiting both of you guys. So Anybody have any other questions before we shut this down? It is 6:30. My wife's out there cooking dinner. I can smell it. We having chicken from the farm. So, no questions? So she did confirm it. It is booth 805. So, there you go. If you're going to Bixie Conference, make sure that you visit us and visit them. I almost wore my AEM shirt tonight. I almost grabbed it out of the closet tonight. I will wear it during one of my shows. Until next time, everybody, remember, knowledge is power. Take care.